Your Dog's Friend is a nonprofit 501c3 whose mission is to help keep dogs out of shelters by educating and supporting their humans. We promote positive method of training and behavior modification through stress-free methods. As part of that mission, we offer free webinars like the one you're about to watch. Subjects range from dog behavior, stress-free training, and other tools to help you understand your relationship with your dog. If you like the webinar, be sure to give us a thumbs up. Click the notification bell and subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you'll be notified when future videos are posted. Now enjoy the webinar.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to your Dog's Friends webinar series. Today's webinar is about how to teach your dog to greet calmly, whether at home or in public. First, I want to introduce you to our speaker, though. Juliana DeWillems actually has too many trainer and behavior certifications for me to mention them all. She is also on the faculty of the Pryor Academy, a top program for positive dog trainers. Juliana is the owner of JW Dog Training, which offers virtual coaching and in-person lessons in Northern Virginia. We are always delighted to have her back. She is one of our most frequent and best speakers. We also appreciate donations to help us keep these webinars going. If you are so inclined, you can go to our homepage and there's an icon in the upper right corner to donate. I know that you will learn a lot from today's webinar. I always do. Juliana, I'm turning it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Deborah. Hi, everyone. I'm Juliana DeWillems, just like Deborah said. And Deborah, you were always so kind with your introduction. So thank you. JW Dog Training is a company based out of Northern Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. And just like Deborah said, we offer virtual training pretty much worldwide, as well as in-person training in the Northern Virginia area. We work on everything from bouncy adolescents and puppies, working on calm greetings like you're going to see today, and all the way to fear, reactivity, aggression. We kind of run the gamut. So I really love talking about this stuff. I am going to fit a lot of information into this talk today. Like Deborah said, we would love to answer your questions. I have a screen here that has the chat up so I can see it pretty easily. I would love to answer content related questions in the moment. So if you have a question about what I'm talking about, please throw it in the chat. If I see it, I'll get to it. I do ask that you ask any specific questions about your own dog, maybe at the end, or phrase it in a general way, because we've got a lot to cover today. I certainly don't want to keep you for 2 hours, and I want to make sure we get to general questions about the content before answering any more specific questions. I will also have my contact information at the end of the presentation, so you can find me on Instagram or reach out to me via email if you have additional questions. So today we're going to be talking about greetings. And I will say my opinion and kind of outlook on greetings has changed over the last 2 years. I think a lot of time during this pandemic, a lot of dog training information has moved to social media, and a lot of my training colleagues on social media, some of them you'll see some videos from today, put out a lot of really awesome information and perspectives about greetings, about dog behavior. And it's just really been getting me thinking kind of about our expectations around greetings and what we expect from our dogs, what we ask of our dogs, what we want. And so I'm going to dive into that a little bit today and hopefully give you all some stuff to think about and consider and hopefully apply with your own dog. That's fun. Okay, so excitable greetings are very normal. This is a video from one of my clients, and these little guys are super happy to see me. They're a little conflicted because they're also a little nervous of strangers. And I'm going to show you this raw video. I actually have the full video later in the presentation to kind of discuss one of my points, but this is to show you that greetings like this are very normal. And I'm warning you, there is barking in this video. It's like, wait a second. Come on, let's go. Let's go. So I'm going to save the second half of that video for later, but I just wanted to put us all on a very even playing field. These greetings are super normal. They are basically programmed into most dogs. And it's really important to understand that, because that's going to go into how and kind of why and what we might do to change it. So again, jumping is a normal social behavior for dogs. And one point that I really want to drive home during this presentation is that if your dog is exuberant and excited to meet people, while it's frustrating and at times can be unsafe, it's a great problem to have that they're interested and excited about people, guests, strangers, stuff like that. So I really want to keep the perspective that not only is this behavior normal, it's great. We love friendly dogs. We love when they feel comfortable approaching people. And so it's not the worst problem in the world to have. And what I'm going to have you kind of think about throughout this presentation is, how can we work with this behavior instead of against it? We love that our dogs are excited to meet people. So how can we harness that energy in a positive way? How can we build on that enthusiasm instead of constantly asking them to not be excited, to not be dogs, to not show their emotions, to be less, do less? You know, that's hard. And that's a lot of work to try to stifle those greetings and to make them, subdue them and stop the behavior. There's a lot. It's hard. It's working against our dogs and their genetics and their species. And so I'm going to hopefully give you a lot to consider today about how you can improve the interactions for everyone without fighting against them. So this talk is aimed towards dogs who do want to meet people. And that's really important. This is not, unfortunately, a talk that will cover fear or reactivity that's rooted in fear, anxiety, stress, aggression, anything like that. So not this guy. If you don't know much about body language, this guy is super scared. You can see his hackles are up. His tail is straight up. His mouth is puckered forward. You see the whites of his eyes. His ears are back. This guy's really, really panicked. And so he is not one that is excited to meet whatever he's barking at. And that's really important, is that this talk is definitely aimed towards social dogs, friendly dogs. And I am also going to be talking about greetings in the context of greeting people, not necessarily other dogs, although I do have one video about greeting other dogs that I want you to apply to people. But if you're looking more for behavior around other dogs, I have another webinar about social dogs becoming reactive and how frustration can play into it. So you might get more out of that. So this is regarding people and excited to meet people. And speaking of greetings, my own dog likes to scream when my wife comes home, and she might come home during this 2-hour presentation. So if Lola might bark briefly, won't last long. And it's a good reminder that greetings are kind of relative, and what you want for your own dog is personal, and those are your own choices to make. And we don't really care that she screams when we come home. We think it's kind of cute. So we have not worked on it. So just a heads up. So scenarios where jumping occurs that we're going to talk about today. So on you, the pet parent, guests that come over to your home. So I'm going to kind of label those front door greetings, and then on leash during walks. Those are the 3 categories that I'm going to that I've broken out greetings into. So dogs are always behaving. And this is the number one thing we have to start off and establish, because you cannot simply say, stop doing that. You cannot simply say, stop behaving, stop doing what you're doing. Dogs, the only dog that doesn't behave is a dead dog. And so dogs are always doing something. Now, I labeled some behaviors here that could occur during a greeting: jumping, standing. These are what your dogs are doing. Sitting, licking, leaning into the person, weaving in between the legs, lying down, paws on the person, not necessarily continuing to jump up, but just putting their paws on, walking around the person, barking. These are all behaviors that they're just normal dog behaviors. And the reason I listed them here, and I didn't identify which ones are necessarily desirable or undesirable, is because behavior is not good or bad. It is simply behavior. And so that can be also a helpful mindset shift. Instead of saying that my dog does bad behavior, your dog is doing natural, normal behavior that a dog does. It's undesirable to you. It's not something that you want, but does it have to be bad? No, it's just behavior. So that's going to be, you're going to see me using terms like an undesirable, desirable, behavior you want to see more of, behavior you don't want to see more of. So there is, that can also be really freeing. Like, you don't have to think, oh, my dog was so bad during that interaction. No, they were just being a dog and they didn't have necessarily the right guidance and the right support to make the choices that we would want them to make, but they're just behaving. So sometimes that mindset shift can help a little bit. So when it comes to greetings, I'm going to talk all about today how to make undesirable behaviors hard to rehearse, meaning the behaviors you don't want to see more of. How can we decrease the chances that our dogs practice those behaviors? Because the more they practice them, the better they get at them and the stronger habits they become. So preventing the rehearsal of unwanted behavior is a huge piece to improving behavior. We're going to talk about how to do that through something called management. And then making those desirable behaviors easy to choose and worth it. So expecting a grand gesture of staying for the duration of a 3-minute entrance with guests right off the bat, that is not something that's easy for our dogs to choose at all. So expecting that, you're basically going to set them up for failure versus, let me pick a behavior that's really easy for you. Stand briefly for half a second in the presence of a guest. Great. That's easy. That got you really quick reinforcement. So that's by changing your criteria to make it easy for your dog to get the win, to hit that good choice, that desirable choice. Look, see, even I have an issue. I have a hard time reprogramming my brain away from good and bad and desirable and undesirable. But if you make the behavior you want to see during greetings easy for your dog to choose, that puts you on the path to better habits much more quickly. And then we'll talk about reinforcement and how to make it worth it for your dog. So that piece, actually, making it worth it for your dog, we'll talk about that. Reinforcement drives behavior. So reinforcement is anything desirable, anything good, or that your dog likes, when anything you add to a behavior to increase the chances that that behavior occurs in the future. So you have a behavior, you add reinforcement, something your dog likes. And in this case, and in the case of greetings, reinforcement can be any of these. It can come from the person. It can come from the person they're trying to greet. It can come from you during the greeting, even with strangers. It can be anything from talking to them, touching them, looking at them. And then, of course, treats, playing with the guest, having access to the guest or to you. All of these things are reinforcements that can drive behaviors and reinforce behaviors. And what happens when you see a behavior and you add reinforcement to it is you get more of that behavior. Now, what dogs find reinforcing in any given moment is going to be dependent on the dog and dependent on the situation. You might think that your regular training treats are something your dog loves, and then you try to bring them out when, your mom comes over and your dog loves your mom. Your dog says, I couldn't care less about your training treats in this moment. That the situation does impact how motivating and reinforcing different things are to our dogs. And keeping that in mind will be really helpful on your training journey. So it's really important to brainstorm replacement behaviors. I don't like what you're doing during a greeting. It's not safe. Our guests don't like it. I don't like what you're doing. And so instead of saying, stop doing that, we're not focusing on stopping and punishing or decreasing the behaviors that we don't want. Instead, we're going to think about behaviors we want instead. Can you stay by my side? Can you stand while somebody pets you? Can you check in with me? So look back at me in the presence of other people. And there's no one single replacement behavior that is best for every single dog and human pair for every dog. That kind of comes down to personal preference. And it might also vary depending on who they're saying hi to. You might be okay with your replacement behavior being putting their paws on you instead of, maybe you don't like when they jump up and they relentlessly jump on you because they scratch you. But if they just gently jump on you and put their paws on you gently, then that's okay in your mind. Again, it's personal preference. And so, but if your, father-in-law comes over and he's just had a hip replacement or something, and that replacement behavior, the goal behavior there might be very different than the goal behavior with you. So changing your mindset from, I don't necessarily like the way that this greeting looks now, but what behaviors would I like instead? And there used to be a huge push for sitting during greetings, like, oh, just have sit be what gets the dog attention. But we're really moving away from that. And I guess by we, I mean me. And I think a lot of positive reinforcement trainers are moving away from sitting for a couple of reasons. One, I think sitting when super excited can be really hard for dogs. Standing works just as well without putting so much pressure on them. Sitting also puts them kind of in a position to launch straight up. And I think standing doesn't necessarily do that as much. And I think when we take the requirement for sitting out of the equation, we just naturally look for other alternative options that work just as well. So this is all about building new habits. Again, the natural dog behaviors, unfortunately, don't fit in super well with the human world in terms of launching up, jumping up a lot to greet people. They naturally want to be near our face and get close to our face and maybe info gather or lick our face. And that unfortunately just doesn't always work super well from the human world. So how can we build habits that work better for everyone? So let's talk about jumping on you, the pet parent. So this is like you get home from work, which is a little bit more relevant to talk about now than during COVID when we weren't coming home from the office. So you come home from work and Fluffy wants to say hi to you. So what do you want that greeting to look like? Again, taking into account that your dog is not a robot and they are not going to sit calmly on their bed as you walk in the door and just wait for you. That's not a realistic expectation. And I think too, we put a lot of pressure on our dog's behaviors when we greet them. And I don't know about you, but my reunion home with my dog is like, it's so joyous and she's so happy to see me. And it's like one of the best bonding times with my dog. And so I personally don't like to, again, stifle or subdue that. I like to embrace that enthusiasm. And I think it's really cute when she's happy to see me. So she's a little dog, so it's not as big of a deal that she's super excited and jumping up. But if she was a larger dog, I would say, yay, I'm so happy to see you. Come meet me on the couch and let's like have a snuggle session as soon as I come home. But think about what is the desirable, what do you want your greeting to look like? And how can you make that happen? I'm going to show you a ton of videos today. So many that my computer might crash, but hopefully you'll get some ideas of what might work best for you and your dog. I just saw a client this morning who was so wonderfully creative with her dog. She has her dog's place set up in the corner. So like a little bed that she's trained the dog to go over to. And then she put a stool next to or chair or something next to the place. So the dog puts his front paws up on the stool and he can just like lick her and love on her all over. She doesn't have to bend over so far. He's a smaller dog and he's not jumping all over her. So they found this wonderful way to interact with each other and get that greeting out of their system and enjoy that kind of really beautiful moment without the dog kind of rehearsing a ton of jumping and without her having to bend over or get kind of nail claw marks on her. So we're going to talk a little bit more about options like that in a few slides. So we actually don't recommend ignoring your dog or turning your back, which is our common recommendations a lot of times for trainers, especially trainers who don't use punishment. You might hear, and I would say we're getting, like, most people don't actually recommend this anymore, but it's not uncommon to hear it. Like, oh, if they jump on you, just ignore them, just turn your back, just withhold attention. That can be really frustrating to your dog because it's not, well, and I'll go ahead. So none of these options give the dog information about what you do want from them. It's just simply, they're like, I want to say hi to you so bad. And you're just like, nope, that doesn't work. Okay, well, what does work? And punishment, I mean, again, I've talked a lot about how amazing this interaction can be of saying hi to your dog and you just came home. And to me, that feels really yucky to punish in that scenario, especially when, again, it doesn't give your dog information about what to do. And there's so many other options that wouldn't require you disciplining them in that moment. That could potentially make them scared of you or uncomfortable around you or when you get home. Nobody wants that. So we do not recommend ignoring unwanted behavior. And I'll show you what we do recommend instead. So it's really important, a note about jumping during greetings, whether it's you or to strangers, that jumping can be caused by anxiety, stress, a little bit of fear. So that's all the more reason to not ignore it or punish it. And so I thought about adding this, and I'm so glad that I remembered to, because the dog in this picture looks a little worried. His ears are back and there's whites of their eyes. And this picture is just a moment in time, but there are absolutely many dogs that I've met who in anxious moments will run over to their guardian, their pet parent, and start jumping on them. And so I am very much of the philosophy that if our dogs are suffering some way emotionally, if they're scared, if they're nervous, if they're anxious, that we should comfort them and we should give them support in those moments. And so it feels really yucky and a disservice to our dogs to ignore them or leave them hanging in those moments, or even worse, punish them. And I see this a lot, like in maybe like dog park settings or in busy events where the dog experiences something and then just immediately turns back to their human and starts jumping on them. Especially if you think about context, if you've been with your dog the whole time and they suddenly start jumping on you and it doesn't feel like, it's like a playful thing, or they're trying to get you to play with them or engage with them, feels more quote unquote out of the blue. I would ask yourself, like, what just happened? Where are we? What are we doing? Is there an anxiety piece here? And throughout this whole presentation, these are all really general tips. I cannot speak to you and your individual dog. And if you are stuck or you feel like you're really having challenges with your dog, remember, it's always best to work one-on-one with a qualified trainer. So jumping on you and your dog, you want to say hi to each other. So how can we get to that desirable behavior as quickly as possible with a desirable option for everyone? So again, how can you greet your dog quickly without them rehearsing a bunch of jumping and leaping? Can you have a spot to meet them at? Are you going to kneel down and get to them really quickly? Because the least amount of time that they rehearse that unwanted behavior is better. And so that's why waiting them out or simply standing there until they stand or they sit, that actually can slow your progress, because the dog might not, especially in their excited state when they can't think and they don't necessarily as quickly go to that thinking brain and problem solving brain. They just might jump and jump and jump. And they might be jumping for 60 seconds, 2 minutes before they do finally stand or sit or whatever behavior choice you are looking for. And then you give them attention. So that's great that you're reinforcing the behavior you want. But what just happened is they rehearsed the undesirable behavior for a really long time. And that can really delay your progress. If you're ultimately hoping to get to behavior A and they spend a whole bunch of time rehearsing behavior B, that's what a behavior that could potentially get strengthened. So when troubleshooting any type of greeting, I always help clients, how can we get to the desirable behavior as quickly as possible? So this weird little graphic at the bottom, it's kind of how I think about it. So the red part of the line is the behavior we don't want, right? And the green part of the line is the behavior we do want. And right now, the baseline might be that for, say, a greeting sequence happens for 5 minutes. It might be that 4 of those 5 minutes, the dog is, your dog is jumping and enthusiastic and excited and, you know, scraping your legs or frantically pawing at you or whatever the undesirable behavior is that you're not super liking. And then finally, by the end, after they've gotten some of their energy out and you've probably accidentally paid some attention to them, then they start to calm down and give you what you're looking for more of. But the majority of that time was spent on undesirable, unwanted behavior, rehearsing that. So I'm going to revisit this little line graphic and this comparison about how much time is being spent with each behavior a few times in this presentation, because that's just how I think of it. How can we get that red part of the line as short and brief as possible? And I hate kind of labeling it red and green because that does add what feels like, you know, those good and bad labels. It's just, I know that's how our human brain works. It's the easiest to see kind of what I'm talking about right off the bat. So this was an Instagram post that I absolutely loved from Jack and Jill Dog Training on Instagram. I highly recommend that you go follow them. So I'm going to I'm sharing a few what are called Instagram Reels in this presentation. And Reels, unfortunately, are designed to be very quick, to have a lot of information really quickly. So it's going to go fast. We're going to watch it twice and I will narrate it for you. And then we'll just talk about it after. And it doesn't have video volume because for a lot of these, unfortunately, if I kept the cute song in that was posted on Instagram, we'd get copyright issues on YouTube. So it does not have volume here. So options for dogs who jump up, other than ignoring, turning your back, or removing your attention. Hop up, hold a toy, direct to a treat scatter, or this cute middle trick. Or you can enjoy your dog jumping up. I love that part at the end. So we're going to watch that again one more time. Options for dogs who jump up, other than ignoring, turning your back, or removing your attention. Hop up onto a chair or hold a toy while they say hi, direct to a treat scatter, this cute middle trick, or simply enjoying it. And I loved this video so much because it gives just a fresh perspective to how we can handle jumping. It doesn't always have to be this sit still, sit still, sit still. There are so many other options that you can ask your dog to do, and you can rehearse in various scenarios. And my favorite thing in the dog training world is to take a concept, so a replacement behavior, reinforce new behaviors, different behaviors, and get creative with it. Like, where can you take it with your own individual dog? What works best for you and your dog? So this is kind of what is labeled in that last video, the hop up method. So I have loved this method for greeting dogs. Having the dog hop up on the couch, if you're okay with dogs on the furniture, which reminder, dogs on furniture does not impact their behavior in general. And so hopping up on a couch, on a specific chair, almost having like a greeting station, because what I've found is true almost 100% of the time is that dogs are so much better once they get it out of their system. Meaning once they say hi to you, it's like letting pressure off of a pot. If you open that lid, it releases the pressure. So if you just let them say hi to you we can say hi quickly. We can do it in a way that works for everyone and we can get it out of their system. It can take the the greeting chaos from 10 minutes, don't say hi to the dog until he's calm. Oh, he's not calm yet. You said hi and he got crazy again. Ignore him. Like, it takes all of that down to just a few minutes of saying hi, and then you can move on with your day. So I am going to play this. There's a lot of squealing on my behalf, and the dog whines a little bit too. It's very cute.
Hi. Hey, Bubba. Hello. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Oh, you're so cute. Hi. Hi. Hello. Oh, hey. Oh, careful. Come here. Come on. You're doing so well. Hi. This is very nice. Oh boy. Okay. Do you feel better? No? What do you think? Come here. Come here. Good job. Good job.
So you can see him start to calm down. His vocalizing is a little less. He's not as frantic.
Come on.
And then he's much better once we continue on. And I feel strongly that by just getting that full greeting out of the way, instead of, again, withholding, you're not meeting my criteria, I'm not going to say hi to you, just going all in a way that worked. He was not jumping on me. It was really lovely. I think that dog could easily learn that when he wants to say hi to people, or when people walk in the door, jump on the bench, say hi, get out of your system, and then move on. So we did have a question. Do you need to pick the same behavior for every person for consistency? What if the owner doesn't mind jumping, but visitors or people on the street do? So that's a really good question. And I would say my opinion would be that it depends on the dog. And what I find most commonly works with this, where the person is okay with an exuberant greeting, but guests probably aren't, is that instead of trying to train the dog to learn the different contexts, I would probably use management. And we'll talk a ton about management, but it basically means like a gate or a leash or putting your dog in another room. I would use management for the greetings that we want different behavior in. And we're going to talk all about that. So I have a feeling you'll get a little bit more clarity. And we we're going to continue. We're going to talk about front door greetings with guests and behaviors of greetings on leash. Lots of information to come. Laura asked, do you make the door greeting a natural cue to automatically go to a greeting station, or do you verbally cue to go to the station before the greeting, or does it matter? So Laura, that's a great question. I actually have a brief video about that later. So I will answer your question, but I would say it doesn't matter. Whatever gets your dog to the behavior you want as quickly as possible, then that's what I would recommend. So this is another video of a dog who is often quite exuberant when his humans come home. And so we're rehearsing a greeting sequence where we're encouraging the dog to lean into the person for the greeting, so she can get all of her attention by leaning in and basically going perpendicular to the owner. And I also am instructing him to just gently hook his thumb under her collar. That I don't think you can see super well in the video, but that is one way that I basically managed. So if the dog did try to jump up, they couldn't. I am not putting force during the greeting. I am not using it as a correction option. I am simply basically restricting their option to jump while also greeting them and getting it out of their system. Good. So I'd make a big noise.
Hi.
Good. And then just walk into the other room where she normally gets greeted. Great.
Hi.
Very good. So get ready with that probably left or right hand and hook with the collar. Good. Good.
Good girl.
Very good. Nice.
Good girl.
Yep.
Good girl.
Nice hook with the left. And if you need to kind of keep your chest up and face away, where you can still pet her without putting your face right next to hers, that'll probably also set her up for success. Good. Very good. Nice. So you can see she's responding really nicely to this greeting sequence.
Too is then when you stand back up, then you can give her a cue to sit or maybe touch as you walk away, so that it doesn't turn into that same, I stop giving you the attention and she launches again.
Gotcha.
Very good girl. Great. So go ahead and stop and let's see what she does. Really
said that was
nice.
good.
Girl.
Good girl.
So my microphone is a bit away from my computer speakers. And so for videos where I feel like the audio is important, I will move my microphone so it's a little bit louder. It might be a little quiet for you all. In this video, and this is really important, is that if you want a specific greeting sequence, it can be really helpful to practice it not during the times of the greeting. And remember, we're still talking about just you greeting your dog. And so this is not guests. This is not other people. This is when you come home and you want to say hi to your dog. And so practicing the sequence and knowing what you're going to do. And this actually is important for each step of for no matter what greetings, is like having a plan ahead of time, but rehearsing when it's not this super heightened, excited time can be really helpful. All right, so we are going to transition to front door greetings. And I'm basically going to cut this into a few different topics, and management is going to be the key. I really, really, truly feel it is the key to success. And we'll talk about what management is and what it means. I also have an entire webinar about management. So if you seem to like it, you can learn plenty more. We're going to talk about planning ahead, the skills and the preparation that you need, and then putting it all together. Management. So management is basically changing the environment in a way that prevents access to the undesirable behavior. So you're doing something to the environment to prevent your dog from jumping on guests when they come in the door. It is, I feel, a necessary and non-negotiable part of improving behavior greetings, because as long as your dog gets to rehearse and be reinforced for the undesirable behavior, they will continue to do it. And especially if it's rehearsing in a way that is a lot and excessive and strong, and they're building tons of that behavior over time, you are going to just have a really, really hard time making progress. So management can look different for everyone. Management can mean keeping your dog behind a gate so they are not part of the front door greeting. Management can be keeping your dog on a leash. You're going to see examples of both. And I think both work for, you could use both with your own dog, depending on the scenario. You could use, one might work much better for you, but these are the two main forms of management during greetings. And it basically means changing the environment to prevent the unwanted behavior. So this is really important to note. And because as you come up with your greeting strategy, you have to understand the science of learning, because it can be very detrimental if you don't understand it and you accidentally use the wrong techniques, or techniques that can make your issue much worse than your dog just liking greeting or just being exuberant during greetings. So dogs learn by association. And what that means is that if every time guests come over and walk in your door, you get really mad at your dog, they do not necessarily understand it's their behavior that's causing you to be mad. They could very easily, very likely create the association that guests cause my parents to be angry. Guests cause my guardians to yell at me, to use, spray bottles, to use pet corrector, the compressed air. If our dogs are always getting punished for their behavior when guests are coming over, you can very quickly cause them to be fearful of guests coming over. And fear can cause aggression. In fact, a lot of you might be here today because you're seeing big barking, big lunging, growling. You might have stuck around when I said this was for quote unquote friendly social dogs, because you have a dog who shows undesirable behavior, but that undesirable behavior is fear, aggression, and fear-based reactivity. And I just cannot stress enough that it's just not worth it to add punishment to the equation here when we have so many other options that do not come with these same risks. And just understanding that your dog your dog is not as likely to realize that their emotional, excited behavior is causing the punishment, they could very easily realize that it is thinking the guests are causing it. They could say, I don't like when guests come over. They could start reacting when guests come through the door. This means shock collars, bark collars, citronella spray, leash corrections, shake hands, you name it. I do not recommend pairing punishment with your guests coming over. So pivoting, training your guests. So the people coming over to your house often don't come programmed with the appropriate knowledge of how to act around dogs in a way that sets the dogs up for success. I think it's so important to realize that people can come with either preconceived ideas, or they can maybe even be acting a little bit out of fear or discomfort around your dogs. And it can be really hard for them to act a certain way. And so it's really helpful and important to set your humans up for success as well. Know what you're going to tell them, know kind of your spiel, have a plan for when you're going to tell them, text them before you come. Hey, I'm doing some training. Can you please ignore my dog when you come in? I find it's easiest to tell people to ignore the dogs, in the sequence. It's just simple. It's easy, takes any excitement out of the equation, but it's really important that you do get your guests on board for what you want them to do during the sequence. This is another great option. Please wait a moment while I get my new dog ready to greet visitors. People will put this like on their front door, on their window, right under their doorbell. And this can really relieve some pressure for you to, get to your door so quickly, and you're so frantic and you're trying to deal with the dog who might be barking, lunging. All the more reason to have your dog stay behind a gate so that, as long as they're behind the gate, you can go and greet your guest, give your guest the spiel. I just love keeping the dogs behind the gates. Or if you choose to have your dog on leash, you grab the leash before you walk up and get your guest. Buy yourself some time. So I'm going to go over a few strategies today, and unfortunately, there's no one size fits all. I know you're probably hoping that I was going to give you the one magic formula. There is none. There are a few different options depending on how much kind of effort and training you want to put in, and so I'm going to share each of those. So the first option is complete management, and this is basically your dog being completely out of the picture when guests come over. You might have them in a completely separate room. You might have a white noise machine on. You might give them calming toys like a Kong, just like you see in this picture here. This dog is clearly very occupied with the Kong. And this can, for those of you who really find a lot of anxiety from your dog's behavior, or there's a time where you have to focus on your guest and you don't want to worry about your dog, this can be a great option. What's most important is practicing this ahead of time and making sure that your dog is comfortable by themselves in a room by themselves. All dogs are different here. Some might really panic when they're left alone in a room, in which case, obviously, this wouldn't be the best option. But some dogs, if you can get them in there 10, 15 minutes before a guest comes, they've got nice calming music on, they've been well exercised, they've got fun calming activities. This could be a great option. And then you can focus entirely on your guests, and it's kind of a win-win. This is an example of a management routine where I take the dog completely out of the equation by getting him to go into the backyard when the doorbell rings. So this happens after the doorbell rings, meaning he's already heightened, and then I get him outside, because I understand there will be times where the doorbell rings and you weren't expecting it. You have a delivery, you get somebody dropped off, and you have to be able to get your dog from point A to point B. And that's where rehearsing ahead of time can be really helpful. But you'll notice I just put him in the backyard, and I don't have to worry about him when I go to the front door. The doorbell rang. It was probably faint. So he runs towards the door.
Let's go.
I enthusiastically encourage him to head over to the backyard.
Good job.
I toss some treats out there for him. He's pleased to go.
Good boy. Come on.
The older dog comes slowly. And then I go and I get the door dog free. So I don't have to worry about them. I don't have to worry about them running out. I don't have to worry about them barking. I don't have to worry about them jumping on anyone. There can be huge benefits to just getting the dog out of the picture briefly for these greetings. And again, this would be more temporary versus the other one, getting the dog situated in a room, would be more for the duration of the visit. Depends on your needs, your dog's needs, and what would work best. Veronica asks, what do you think of asking dogs to go into crates or keeping them in a crate when visitors come over versus behind a gate? It's totally dependent on the dog. Crates for some dogs are excellent options. I have a few clients who have their dogs stay in crates. Again, you want to look for calm, relaxed, comfortable behavior. And if your dog is capable and comfortable doing that in a crate, then I think that's awesome. It contains them. You can give them something to work on. Obviously, if your dog gets really distressed when they're in the crate and they know that you're home, that is not going to be ideal. Or if your dog is fearful and they're stuck in a crate and the guests are moving around, that can be really scary as well. But again, if you have a crate routine that works well for your dog, excellent. Go for it. All right. So those were two ways of keeping the dog totally out of the equation. And I would put putting them behind a baby gate in that as well. But the management would be they're totally out of the equation and you're not bringing them to the front door. The next step would be management and prevention. You don't need as many formal skills, but it is a step above just keeping them totally out of the equation. So prevention, what I mean by that here is that you're going to use basically treats, high value treats, something your dog loves to prevent the jumping, the launching, all that stuff. You start by having the dog behind a baby gate or in another room. You could have them on leash, but that puts them more in the equation right off the bat. I just simply find that management is a little bit easier by putting them behind a gate. And then we're doing a lot of treat tosses, a lot of treat scatters. We're not really asking any specific behaviors. We are simply using food on the ground to keep our dog's attention away from the guests. Okay. This isn't a video that I have to share. I'm going to move my microphone for because this is a video. It's a long one. It's like 3 minutes. I narrate the whole thing. It basically sums up this whole presentation. I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's a good one. And I'm going to move my microphone so you can hear it. Just add in the chat if something goes wrong and you can't hear it.
In this video, I show a real-life example of how I handle a greeting when a guest comes over and the dog is young, very jumpy, and large. I'm going to narrate what I do and why I do it. I'm not doing any formal training, meaning asking for specific behaviors, but dogs are always learning, so I'm using management and high-value treats to encourage the behavior I do want and discourage the behavior I don't want. The first thing you're going to hear here is a knock. That's what starts the greeting routine, but pay attention to the fact that I have high value treats ready on the counter. It was a faint knock, but you can tell the dog hears it because her head turns towards it and she looks at the sound. She's different because she didn't charge the door when she heard the knock. A lot of dogs do. She didn't. Makes our life a little easier, although the routine wouldn't really change if she did start barking. I immediately go grab a big handful of tasty treats and I walk towards the gate. The gate is an important piece here because it means she can't follow me to the front door where a lot of the trouble happens. I showed her the handful of treats I had and then scattered them on the ground behind her. I did this for 2 reasons. 1, to get her focused on an activity other than the guest, and 2, to get her sniffing and eating, which are calming activities. It took her a second to remember the treats were there, but she did eventually, and it helped. By now, she's noticed the guest and she's super excited. I love that she's so happy to see a stranger. Because she's so excited, it's unlikely that she'll be able to respond correctly to her known cues like sit, place, or anything else. This is really common when dogs meet new people. I don't want her to practice ignoring me, so instead I'm going to use my treats to get the behaviors I want in the presence of the guest, which include forepaws on the floor, disengaging from the guest, focusing on me, and or searching for treats on the ground. Notice I'm not calling her over to me. Instead, I'm putting the treats right on her nose, again, because that's the most likely chance she'll be successful in this scenario. Though now that she has calmed down just a smidge and seems way more engaged with me, I do cue a very well-known behavior of go to her mat, which she does correctly. I'm still there helping her along every step of the way. And she also peed a little during the greeting, so now we are cleaning it up. Real life, I told you. So that was our real life routine for this particular day with this particular guest. Greetings are hard and they take a lot of pre-planning. It's important that the environment is set up that your dog is most likely to be successful. Use gates, use leashes, use rooms, whatever you need. Have your high value treats ready. Make sure that those treats compete with the excitement of a guest, and make sure you know what you're going to tell your guest when they walk in. It is usually best to tell your guest to ignore your dog. It's not going to be like this forever. Right now, think of it as you're holding your dog's hand through this whole interaction to help them make good choices. Over time, with consistency, patience, and practice, they'll start learning new habits, and you can back off of how much you have to help them through these interactions. And remember, if your dog is overly friendly with people who come into your home, that is a good problem to have. We love that they are friendly and excited when they see strangers and guests, and we certainly don't want to punish that. Instead, we really want to focus on what we do want from our dogs during greetings, and we want to help them in every way that we can to make those good choices.
Okay. So like I said, that was basically summed up the whole talk. You can watch that 3-minute video and skip this 2-hour presentation. But I hope that that was helpful for you to see how I would implement all of these strategies. And here's the thing. Greetings are messy. They are not perfect when they happen. They can be chaotic. They can be full of excitement. They can be fast and happening all at once. And as much as we talk about kind of planning ahead and training and all this stuff, the reality is that a lot of times they're crazier than you would think. And so I just wanted to give you a very, very real life example. There's a question, is that available on YouTube? Unfortunately, it's not on my YouTube, but it is on my Instagram. And it is a bit of an older video. My format is much closer to like 15-second videos these days, not 3-minute videos, but it is on my Instagram. And remember, this talk will be on YouTube after it's being recorded, and it will be posted on YouTube, so you can watch that again. But I'm glad you enjoyed that video. Chris says, my dog knows that someone, so this is talking about management. My dog knows that someone is in the house, so he barks constantly. He does not bark when we leave him in his room when we are leaving the house. So this is a really good point to bring up. Thank you, Chris. And this is why we use white noise machines to drown out the sound of the house. Of course, there are going to be times when your dog still hears somebody's there, but absolutely you will get the most out of their kind of quiet space by making it, I say, like a sensory deprivation room. Like, no, they can't hear anything. Maybe you dim the lights, you make it very calm. I would definitely recommend white noise machines between the source of the sound where the guest is and your dog. That can help a lot. TVs can sometimes help, music, radio, but I don't find that those drown out enough unless they're really loud, and that might not be great for their ears. We also had a question. Why do you tell the dog to ignore the guest, but not you when you get home? So this goes back to greetings in different contexts with different people have different needs and I don't want to say expectations, but sort of expectations. Like the way that I act when I get home with my dog is not going to be the same that I would expect a stranger or a guest coming into my home to interact with my dog. And that's okay. Because when I get home with my dog, I'm totally fine with her being exuberant and excited and crazy and jumping on me. And that's kind of our relationship and what we do together. And I'm going to have a different picture when a guest comes over, I'm going to treat it very differently. So and the guest ignoring the dog is simply to keep excitement levels a little lower to set our dogs up for success. So another question about what about dogs who start barking and going bonkers when the doorbell rings or when someone knocks? It's hard to get them to calm at that point. So you're going that's a little bit more into reactivity, and it's tough to go really into that in a almost like responsible way, because that's a lot. There could be a lot going on there. It could be because they're excited. It could be because they're scared. I still will pair the sound of the doorbell with good stuff. So actually, I really hesitate to kind of go down that path because there are so many things that you could do. Another one that I do have a few videos about this on my Instagram, about how to train different behaviors in the presence of the doorbell, and then also how to help a dog who's a little nervous when they hear people come in. So I think all of that is on Instagram, and you'll find some beneficial videos there. Okay, so using treats to prevent undesirable behaviors. This is an example of walking in the door, and I'm just going to immediately start dropping treats. And I would do this either by myself if I super cared and I didn't want them to jump on me, or would do the same thing as guests come in. So they're super jazzed. I do a lot of making sure I put the treats right on their nose before dropping it, so they know they can kind of track where it's going. And again, if a guest was with me, or I apologize that this isn't the full context of a guest being over, but it's the same concept of just treat scatters, drop the treats. So there was a question also in the chat of when basically do we consider fading out the treats? And that's a really tough question because it depends on the dog, and it depends on their excitement levels, their age, their history of the undesirable behavior. The goal is, of course, to wean off of how much direct support you have to give during greetings. The goal is not to have to do this constant feeding for the rest of your dog's life at all. You'll start to notice when the behavior is starting to improve, and you never go from constant, training and using food to then doing nothing. But absolutely, the goal would be that over time you can use fewer treats, you can space out the time between treats. Maybe your goal is, or maybe the ultimate, what you're working for is the doorbell rings, you grab a little treat, you and your dog head to the door together, they greet nicely, you give them the treat, and your guest comes in and you move on. I mean, that's the dream, right? But behavior change takes time, and it takes a lot of time. It takes practice, and because you're building new habits. And by the way, your dog has no idea you're trying to build new habits. So imagine how hard it is for us to change our habits, and we are trying to change them. So just keep that in mind. All right. So the last option, this is where folks kind of dream of spending their time, is having a very strongly trained behavior sequence where your dog goes to a specific area and they wait there while the person comes in, and they don't move unless they're released. And I'm here to tell you that's really hard to accomplish. The amount of proofing needed and the amount of practice and generalizing needed to accomplish a strong doorbell rings, dog runs to their bed, guest comes in, dog's waiting nicely on their bed. To accomplish that, it's hard, and it's a lot. And so you are more than welcome to try it. But that's where I usually have clients rely way more heavily on management and treat scatters and using the environment to their advantage. I rely on all that stuff way more than this like very hard to accomplish training sequence. But I'm going to show it to you just in case you find it helpful. I think it is interesting. It's good to see what it would look like if you wanted to try it and what skills are needed. So I am going to go to another half of my, all right, I'm going to stop share for a second. Hey, everyone. Okay, I'm going to go to a different PowerPoint because it helps my computer not explode with all the videos. Oh, I have to share my screen again. All right, share screen. All right, so we're back. All right. This was a great question. Denise asked, do you ever have your guests give treats? So I'm really glad you asked that, Denise. I think it depends on the dog, but what I find when guests feed treats a lot right away is the guests, they're already exciting to our dogs and they become even more exciting and the dog becomes even more wanting to approach them and even more wanting to interact with them. I see more success with my clients when we make the pet parent, the guardian, you more exciting, more valuable, the source of good things. And the guest, they're exciting. We know that the guest is exciting, but they don't have the added excitement of being a provider of treats. So I actually have moved away from having the guest scatter treats or ask for sit or anything like that. Maybe once they're in and settled and everybody's calm, then of course, that's great if they want to do a little training or bonding with your dog. But I do not, in these sequence, typically recommend that guests also have and provide food. Okay, so I'm just going to show a few videos of teaching stay in the context of the front door. And one thing that I think helps a lot with stay is having a specific barrier or location that your dog knows to hang out at when you cue stay by the front door. So I will a lot of times use like the edge of a carpet or like a staircase, a landing, something where they know to station when practicing stay around the front door.
Stay.
So Austin is learning to stay at the top of the stairs.
Very nice.
We're breaking it down into tiny pieces so the pet parent knows they approach the stairs, they say stay.
Good.
They're not going all the way to the front door yet. They're breaking it down, returning to Austin to feed the food, and doing another rep.
This time you can jiggle the door handle.
This is basically a very standard stay routine, stay training protocol, just adding in the distraction of the front door. We're using a clicker to mark when the behavior, when the dog does what we want, which is stay in the presence of a distraction. So then we make it a little bit more distracting by opening the door, you'll see.
All right, Austin, ready? Let's go. Good. Stay.
Nice. Yes, Austin is very cute and very smart, and his humans are excellent trainers.
Good boy.
So
Great.
A lot of times what we hear when we talk about training procedures like this, or we're at a client's house and we're in training mode and we're practicing this stuff is, oh, well, if a person were to be on the other side of the door, all bets are off. And yes, absolutely. That's why you have to practice the steps leading up to the person coming in so much. Again, I really mean it when I say this is a really hard thing to build and to train. So this is in the context of training. Now we're adding a person, but it's not a new person. It's me who's been there. So I'm not exciting. I am not novel, but I am a person standing on the other side of the door.
Yeah, great. Yeah, very nice.
And there's a lot going into these training scenarios. It's breaking it down into super easy pieces. It is finding criteria that is achievable. We often see we don't see the success that we want in training because we're asking for too big of pieces. Meaning you might teach your dog stay, and then you ask your dog to stay when somebody comes in the door. Like, whoa, we skipped about 100 steps there. Oh, that's so cute. Okay. Should the dog be able to, okay, this is a good question. Dawn asks, should the dog be able to see the front door in his stay training? Will not seeing it distress him out? As usual, it depends. I do find that trying to train a stay specifically out of sight of the front door is extremely challenging, especially because then they have to start seeing, hearing voices, and it's so hard. So I can't imagine a scenario where not seeing the door is easier, but if you find it is easier for your dog, go ahead and train that way. Okay, so this goes back to somebody asking about automatic behaviors around the front door. So this dog has learned that when I walk to the front door, she should automatically go to her step. This is a process called cue transfer. Won't get into how to teach it today, but it would be a really fun thing if you work with a trainer to ask them to teach you cue transfer, where the action of approaching the door is the cue for the dog to go to the step. I don't say anything. She just knows. It's like magic. And then I release her and we go and try again. And stuff like this is actually it's not as magical as it seems. It's just simple training, but it can totally. I love doing cue transfer with clients where we make approaching the door, opening the door, the doorbell be the cue for these desirable behavior choices. It can be a really fun and easy way to make the dog kind of like make it a game. They totally understand the process, because when it comes to greetings, predictability and knowing what's coming next and rehearsing the process, all this stuff can make it really make your dog much more successful. Okay, so this is another example of we use a station while I come in. So the dog is stationed in an area. The pet parents are feeding the dog consistently, so they are decreasing the chances that the dog will break. The dog does come say hi to me, and that's totally fine. They call the dog back. They're giving a lot of reinforcement from them. And then we do add go say hi, and which basically means you are allowed to approach the guest. We're going to talk about go say hi in a little bit, but this is kind of just a real life example where the clients, these are amazing clients. They've worked really hard on this sequence. And you can see how it goes. So he's trained to stay on this little carpet, and the kitchen is right there to the left.
Go ahead and let him look at me for a second, and if he stays, yeah, good. Very good.
And he is going to approach me here. He jumps. That's okay. No worries. Good. He knows to go back to dad.
I love when he chooses to come away from guests.
I always reinforce for disengaging from me.
Hi.
Good.
Go say hi.
I know we just added that, but I think it'll be helpful.
Go say hi.
So we had just taught the go say hi cue, and he's a little confused about it. You can tell he doesn't quite know.
Really nice. Perfect. Great. And now I'm boring.
And then as just the seconds go by, you can see the excitement level start to go down. So this dog has a really strong history of training with his humans, which really helps. When in doubt, check in with dad. And we had just added the go say hi cue. And it's so funny because this was from a while ago. And now this dog's go say hi cue is so strong. He knows that when he hears go say hi, he goes boop, and he basically comes over just for a second, but then comes back for treats. He's a really, really smart dog, and they've had a lot of success using that little mat there on the left side as his station. I think they say go to your spot. So we practice knocking. We say go to your spot, and then he knows to go over there as they walk to the front door. Just really quickly, I don't have any YouTubes for cue transfer at the front door. I I'll see if I can find any. Go ahead and email me after this because I think I have one blog post that I think would be really helpful. Cue transfer is basically you give the new cue, you give the old cue, and then you get the behavior. And you basically fade out the old cue and your dog starts responding to the new cue. So it's pretty simple, but, and it can be really helpful. So hopefully I'll be able to find some more information about that for you. So we've got a question about Go Say Hi, and I've got a few videos on that. So we'll talk about that in a second. Thank you for asking, Laura. Okay. So this is like everyone's goal, right? Like this is going to be a behavior sequence where this dog actually barks a little bit, but otherwise it's very clean. He goes to his mat. I go open the door. The person comes in and then I release him. This is what everyone wants. It's extremely hard to accomplish, but I will show it to you anyway. Doorbell rings. He goes to his mat. I do reinforce him for going over there.
Hello.
He waits as the person walks in. I am reinforcing the whole time.
Ollie, okay.
And then I release him. And that's the dream, right? That took a lot of training the mat behavior in the context of the doorbell, in the context of the door open, the context of people standing at the door. So, and this dog actually did get quite good at this behavior. The pet parent was fantastic at training it consistently over and over and over again. So just know it takes a lot of work, but it can be useful. It's just a lot. So the reality is that you're probably going to use a mix of all of this stuff, from full management to the prevention with treat scatters, treats on the floor, to using trained skills like go to place, stay, stuff like that. But remember, the goal is to get to your desirable behavior for a greeting as quickly as possible and allow for the shortest amount of time to rehearse the unwanted behavior. So I'm going to show you this little graphic again, where the red is the undesirable, the behavior we don't want, and then the green is the desirable. Right now, you might be seeing 50-50. You might be seeing actually more of the red, but the goal is that over time, because we are setting up the environment and we're helping our dog make better choices, you start to see way less of that undesirable behavior, and the desirable behavior starts to take over and become the new habit, the behavior your dog chooses without question, the behavior that you see way more of. And that's really the goal with these greeting techniques. Okay, so this is the original video that I showed at the beginning. I'm going to read you, this is a reel from my Instagram. I'm going to read you the captions, and because it speaks to exactly what we just talked about. It's super quick. And it's muted for copyright issues. You know, the dogs were barking initially. While working on front door greetings with guests, it is expected that there is some excitement and chaos initially. Our goal is to redirect the dogs to a more desirable behavior as quickly as possible. With practice, we aim to see our dogs choose that behavior quicker and quicker after a guest comes over. Progress over perfection. So these little guys, they are trained to go to this corner. They've got 2 beds over there. And we've seen that every time I come over, it takes less and less convincing for them to run over there because they know the drill now. They know somebody starts coming up the stairs, they're going to get treats over in this corner. And it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen right away. It is not absent of excitement, a little bit of barking, but we are just getting them to our desirable behavior as quickly as possible. All right. So this is another video that I narrated. It's only a minute this time. This was a client who I'm working with virtually, and we had troubleshooted her dog's greeting protocol. Oh, my dog is probably going to bark. Yep. Sorry. Please hold. Okay. We had troubleshooted this dog's greeting protocol. She's super exuberant. She's a young dog. She just would launch herself at guests. So we came up with a few different things to help improve her behavior. Again, it's not perfect, but the pet parents did an amazing job at getting closer to the goal of an easier greeting for everyone. And I'll actually share, we've tweaked this process since seeing this video and since going over this. And I'll tell you what we're doing differently now. I am also going to move my microphone for you.
A client sent me this video of their dog greeting a guest, and I thought they did really well, so I asked if I could share it. First, mom puts the dog on leash to prevent the dog from rushing the door, which is a great idea. Mom instructs the guest to come in and then moved away from the door. Distance from the door can help dogs stay slightly calmer than if they were right at the threshold. The dog is super excited to see the guest, which is what we're working on, but we also love that she's so friendly. Mom gives instructions to the guest, which is often the hardest part of these scenarios. The guest does a great job following directions. Mom is feeding the dog tasty treats to keep the dog focused on her. Mom cues a go say hi sequence, which has been previously trained and rehearsed so the dog knows it. As the dog approaches, the guest cues touch for the dog to touch their hand. Mom then gets the dog's attention back on her. The dog's pretty excited, understandably, and Mom does a great job of using her voice, treats, and the leash to move the dog away. Mom continues to feed a steady stream of treats to make herself more exciting than the guest. She then cues the go say hi sequence again, and you can see the dog has a much easier time with it because the novelty is wearing off. I can't fit in everything else I want to share, so see the caption for more info.
So again, not perfect, not seamless, but the goal was to get the dog less obsessed with the guest, more focused on mom, over time, be able to slowly interact with the person, let that pressure off, the lid off, and make greetings just less frantic. So what we actually changed about this is, instead of having the dog on leash when the guest comes in, the dog is now behind a gate, and they let the guest in, and mom does treat scatters. So the dog calms down, because sniffing is very calming for dogs. And so the dog is behind a gate, the dog's sniffing. Once she's calmed a little bit, the mom puts guest, can instruct guest, hey, ignore, or I think ultimately we decided against using touch and go say hi. We have go say hi is basically go sniff. Or maybe she does say touch, but either way, mom brings the dog out on leash, does a few go say hi's with the guests. And at that point, the dog is a little calmer anyway, because the guest has been in, the novelty wears off. So we added the behind the gate management ahead of time, and that's really been helpful. All dogs are different. So Patty had a question, particularly interested in training safe greetings with seniors who may not understand how to encourage safe greetings from a therapy dog or dog visiting elderly parents with sensitive skin that tears easily. So the responsibility is on the trainer, handler, and the dog. So absolutely, this is a really good and important point, that if your dog is meeting someone who cannot be jumped on, absolutely you have to use management, meaning you have to hold your leash in a way that prevents the jumping. You're feeding treats on the ground to prevent the jumping. I have some videos of that. We can't expect our dogs to be perfect and not be dogs. Not only 100% of the time, we can't expect that, but especially at the beginning of the training scenario, the training timeline, training journey. You know what I mean? Like, we have to not set them up to fail or make bad choices. Something that comes to mind. I was in charge of handling my best friend's dog at her wedding. Perks of, I guess, having a dog trainer as your best friend. And my bad, it was the rehearsal dinner and everyone was dressed up, and I let the dog approach and greet the father-in-law, and who he loves. And he jumped, of course, it was a new setting, all of his favorite people in one room, and he jumped up on the father-in-law and got his nice pants muddy. And somebody got mad at the dog, and I was like, no, that was my fault, 100% my fault, because of course he can't pull out his polite greeting skills here. Everything is hard here. So 100% I should have managed. I should have held him a little closer. I should have had treats ready to feed him. So it was all my fault. And that's how I operate in my relationship with dogs, is knowing they're going to be dogs and taking responsibility when I set them up to fail. So I'm just going to break down a little bit where we use management, prevention, and training in that last sequence. So the behaviors that we made harder by having the dog on leash in that last video, we prevented the dog from running up to guests and jumping on the guests. Behaviors that we encouraged by feeding the treats were staying near mom and not rushing towards the guest. And the behaviors that we encouraged with a training procedure that had previously been practiced was a brief introduction with the person. So we're making the behaviors we don't want really hard to do, and we're making the behaviors we do want much easier to do. So now we're going to talk about on-leash greetings. And this is where like you're out on a walk and your friendly dog is so adorable and somebody wants to say hi and you let it happen. And these are much harder because you often have way less control of the situation, meaning like it's nearly impossible to tell a person on the street, like, oh, help Fluffy not jump on you by doing X, Y, and Z. It's happened so quickly, like it's hard. But there are still things that you can do to make the greetings closer to what you're looking for, to help set your dog up for success, to help to encourage more what I would say like are society approved behaviors, which again is frustrating to me because we have these insane expectations of dogs that they just don't act like dogs most of the time. And so there's a lot of pressure that come with public on-leash greetings, and we'll talk about them. So they definitely require more intervention from you. As I've said, when it comes to management for on-leash greetings, a lot of times what I'll do is like gently holding the leash. I don't typically like to hold a tight leash, and I always use harnesses pretty much. But if it's a matter of not jumping on the elderly person who wants to come say hi to my dog, I will absolutely hold the leash in a way that prevents the dog from jumping. That might just be gently holding it like 6 inches from the clip of the harness. That might be gently holding their harness even. It kind of depends, the size of the dog, the scenario or training history. There's a lot that plays into how I will manage and use the leash, but I will definitely prevent jumping in that way. I will often hold a treat in my hand while the dog is greeting someone to encourage the dog to focus on the treat and to keep their head where I want them and to prevent them from jumping. And then treat scatters on the ground so the dog's head is down and not worried about looking up, jumping on the person. Those are how I would manage. And then when it comes to training that I would do ahead of time, teaching a go say hi, and then a lot of default attention to handler, to myself, or to, you as the pet parent. That default attention, meaning your dog knowing that good stuff comes from you, is one of the best ways to see improved behavior during a greeting. And this is where training history and training done not during greetings, unrelated to greetings, can actually really, really help you during greetings. So this is where I show feeding during a greeting. So I am feeding the dog in a way that prevents him from thinking about jumping on the person. I have food in my hand. As soon as he approaches, the person is greeting. If this was a very exuberant jumper, I would feed more consistently. There's a lot of spaces there where there wasn't food and the dog easily could have turned towards the person and started jumping. This is many years ago, actually. And another thing that I would change about that I just thought of that I don't, is have the person greeting pet anywhere from the collar to the tail. I find greeting hands near the face and hands near the head, that can not only be unsettling to dogs, but it can also be harder for them to resist jumping if they are super social. So I have a treat in my hand. I kind of position the dog in front of the perpendicular to the person, so the person can simply pet the dog's back from the collar, anywhere from the collar to the tail. So this is after we've practiced a few times. The dog is understanding the game. I approach the person who wants to pet me, but I focus on the handler.
Good, perfect. Perfect, good boy. Good, thank you.
And he's happy to greet, which is lovely, but you see him immediately turn back to me. And he and I had a very strong history of default attention.
This one we're just gonna walk up, same thing.
Oh, it looks like we're coming up again. Let's see.
Good, thank you.
So that's great. So he was looking at me even as we approached the person.
Let's go, touch.
And then he's happy to leave.
Good boy.
And that, again, practice is so helpful. If your dog knows when we approach someone, I look back at you for food, that makes your life so much easier. Now, I hope you all have seen that. Yes, I use a ton of food in training. I am I guess what you would call a positive reinforcement trainer. I use a ton of food as reinforcement. It is the most easily accessible reinforcement. It is the reinforcement that most often competes with whatever distraction, whatever person we're working around. It is easy to deliver quickly and efficiently and as much as I need it. So there's a lot of reasons why I use food to reinforce the behaviors I like. And the reason that I use reinforcement, meaning looking for desirable behaviors, is that it's simply the science that, like I said, all the way at the beginning, dogs are always behaving. So I might as well reinforce the behaviors I want instead of focusing on the stuff that I don't want. So another question, and this, I'm glad you brought this up, Marilyn, is what about dogs who are more focused on greeting the people than eating the treats? So food value is extremely important. What that means is the type of treats you're using is absolutely critical to success here. So you cannot go out with your regular training treats, anything crunchy, boring, bland, kibble, unlikely to work. You have to go out with something that your dog probably doesn't get very often, that they think is like the best thing in the world. Regular meats and cheeses can help with this, or can be a good option. They have these new like baby food pouches that are full of meat baby food that can be really tasty. Anything stinky, squishy, and small, because we do need to provide a lot of it. And I use a ton of food in training, but I do not want it to be at the detriment of any dog's health. And I also use a lot of food in training, and it's rarely at the detriment of the health, meaning we're not walking around seeing a ton of overweight dogs with positive reinforcement training, as long as you're smart about the size of treats that you use. So that is really a huge piece to it. There are also some other pieces, meaning practicing at home without the greetings, really getting your behaviors fluid without the people. There's really a number of factors that go into your dog's ability to eat in these exciting scenarios. But remember, heightened emotions can absolutely impact your dog's ability to eat, whether they're super excited or they're super scared. They're just like us. When we feel really strong emotions, we can't eat. We're not as likely to eat. It could be that, or you could simply just need better stuff. All right, I'm going to keep moving because I don't want to keep you all forever. There's a lot of awesome questions coming in that I will be able to get to at the end. Okay, so this is my one video that I do have. This is a dog greeting. But what I want you to take away from here is that every time the dog turns away from this other dog, mom has her hand out ready with food. And this also is a dog who has a very strong history with mom of getting good stuff. And she's just always ready to reinforce him when he turns away, even for a second. And so pretend like this little white fluffy dog is a person, but just watch mom, the woman here on the right with the green hat and the black jacket. She's the one to watch during this greeting. And I believe I will have some text to narrate for you. How we get attention during a friendly on-leash greeting. Let's pretend it says how we get attention when your dog is saying hi to a person. While the dog is saying hi to the person, mom is ready with tasty food in her hand. The brief moment her dog turns to her, mom rewards. Then he goes back to saying hi. That's okay. She gives him a small treat every time he turns back to her. So by the time she's ready to end the greeting and walk away, he is happy to follow. For social dogs, greetings can be a lot of fun. Rewarding frequently can help keep their attention even around new friends. So again, this is a dog who has a history of getting good stuff from mom. a lot of attention work, training. And she is just ready. She's not waiting for a grand gesture of the dog turning all the way away from the other dog and coming and sitting in front of her for food. No, she has that hand out and is ready to feed at the exact instant that he even turns for a second. So we had a lot of good questions about Go Say Hi. This is the beginning stages of teaching Go Say Hi. I'm not sure what my favorite behavior is from the person greeting in terms of like a touch. Some people will mark the moment that the dog approaches the other person. So basically, I'm in the black here on the left, and puppy mom are over here on the right. You're going to see the dog start and end in a sit focused on mom. Not as worried about the sit, more worried about the focus. And then mom cues Go Say Hi, puppy approaches me briefly. And then basically as soon as puppy gets to me, I have mom intervene and lure puppy away. You can watch it. And it's really important when teaching Go Say Hi that the dog starts and ends with the pet parent being the best. Look,
Right, and she's gonna spin around to you in a second. Good, back up a bit. Sit. Beautiful, really good.
So that is not what we would consider like a real life greeting, right? Because again, just like with Austin at the front door, I'm not novel to this dog. I am not exciting. I'm not a person she saw on the street. But that's why we start teaching the sequence here. So my criteria for Go Say Hi is basically like start with pet parent, focus, eat from pet parent, look up at pet parent, be released to Go Say Hi, pop over to the person, maybe get one or two pets, but then immediately come back around and say hi back. Check back in with the pet parent, because that puts attention to you on both ends of the greeting. And the dog knows exactly where they're starting and exactly where they're ending. And in the middle, they just go bounce to the person and they turn back, and they know they go say hi briefly and then they come back. And the thing about the Go Say Hi sequence that I really like is you can do it 3, 4, 5 times until approaching the person is no longer novel. But by practicing the sequence, Go Say Hi means when you're focused on me, you're getting treats from me, I say Go Say Hi, you know to bounce over to the person, and then you immediately turn back to me. I had a client with a Newfoundland, and I wish I had included his videos because his are so great. He operates at about half speed of this puppy. And they rehearsed the sequence a ton, just her and her boyfriend, who they both live with the dog, but it helped so much for the dog to be able to access the Go Say Hi sequence with friends or with strangers, because he heard Go Say Hi and he said, oh, I know what that means. I turn to the person and I whip back around to mom for more treats. So this is a little bit more real life. We are practicing on the sidewalk. There's also some other stuff going on here. You'll watch like a truck come by. I tell mom to walk up the leash, meaning you're going to see her handle the leash in the middle and walk all the way up instead of dragging the dog back to her when she wants to be close to the dog. You can watch here. Get to her nose so that you can intervene. Beautiful leash handling, really nice.
Good girl.
Yeah, good. So wait for her to take one more kibble from you to make sure she's really zoned in on you. Good. Basically, I wanted the puppy to really be focused on mom before approaching me. Just feed while that loud truck goes by. All right, now you can cue Go Say Hi.
Yeah, come here, Zoe. Hi. Hello.
All right, and intervene. Good. Back up a bit. And lovely.
Good girl.
Just lovely. So Zoe is more than welcome to come and approach me. You can see her little body wag when she approaches. She's happy to. And then mom is right there with the food saying, okay, but now come back to me, please. As a dog gets older and a little bit better with greetings, we might allow for a little bit longer interaction to actually accept some pets. But right now, petting would probably cause too much excitement and cause the dog to amp up a little bit. So we keep it super brief, super positive. And over time, as she gets older, past adolescence, probably adding a little bit more interaction in. Okay. I think we're at the end here, meaning I'm going to tune into your questions in a second. But what I want you all to take away from this, exuberant greetings are normal and it is friendly behavior for dogs. I highly recommend you learn to work with those greetings instead of against them. Pairing management, preventing the unwanted behavior with proactive training, whether that's a go say hi sequence, stay, place behaviors, can really increase your success with greetings. And then the goal is to decrease the rehearsal of the unwanted behavior and get to the desirable behavior as quickly as possible. Dogs are in our life and experiencing other people all day long. And there are a lot of risks that come with punishing. And it also just is so frustrating to try to punish that behavior away. So I just really recommend coming at greetings from an understanding that this is normal and getting creative about how can you help your dog be successful and get everyone closer to the goal behavior of that's safe and practical for everyone. This is my information. Like I said, I'm going to dive into the chat window right now and try to go over your questions. This is where you can reach me. I am not taking new training clients at this time, unfortunately. I have a team of amazing trainers who are, that whether it's in person in Northern Virginia or virtual, we would love to help you. I unfortunately cannot, but like I said, my training team can. Please follow us on Instagram, JW Dog Training. I spend way too much of my time creating all those videos that you saw. I try to put a lot of information out there. I think you all are some pretty amazing, dedicated pet parents, and I just want to get you as much good information as I can. So that's my info. Take a screenshot, and then I'll go ahead and start answering some questions. Okay. Let's dive in. Now, please just bear with me while I kind of scroll through and find what questions I didn't get to. Okay, so there was a question about dogs who urinate when they get excited during greetings. So, all right, did everybody get my contact? I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. All right, you can see my face. Hooray. 1 second. Okay, so dogs who do, I mean, the label is like submissive urinating or excited urinating. So that would be another reason to ignore a dog during greetings. And I certainly, as much as I've talked about, I don't like necessarily ignoring dogs during greetings. Like if it's me, then if a dog was urinating during greetings, that would be a reason that I would not withhold attention, but just give less. Like I wouldn't squeal. I might not bend down to them. The bending over can be really triggering for that behavior. I do find that with a lot of dogs, they grow out of it, especially if we take the pressure off and the excitement out of greetings. So I would just try to keep greetings really low key. Okay. Okay. So we had a question about dogs who nip during greetings. This is super common. And I want you to think here, if your dog's mouth being on your skin is the undesirable behavior, what would be a more desirable behavior that would be easy to access during greetings? I'll give you a second to brainstorm, because my first thought, absolutely, Megan, toy and mouth, ding, 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 100%. Dogs who need to put their mouth on something. I just saw that dog this morning whose pet parent created a great greeting protocol for her. He came in and I came in, he was so excited to see me. It was so cute. I'm kneeling down on the ground to get down to his level. That's another thing that I do a lot. And he started to put his teeth on me, totally normal, like light pressure, nothing crazy. But I immediately said, "Oh, does he have a toy?" And I got the toy. He put the toy in his mouth. I could pet him. I could, love on him a whole bunch while he had that toy in his mouth, and he held it and he was super happy and super comfortable. If a dog isn't super into toys, or you find it hard to keep them occupied in toys, when greeting people come over, then that would be like a treat, tiny treats on the ground to keep mouth and head focused down. So again, I don't want teeth on skin. How do we get teeth on something else? What do we want instead? Okay. I have an 80-pound dog that gets really overexcited and launches herself off the ground, all four legs to jump at your face. I have tried leashing her, but she still pops up. Despite her size, it is really fast. So if I had a dog who the leash alone wasn't enough, and I definitely don't think that like leashes or gates alone are enough, that's where I would do treat to nose and treat on the ground, treat on the ground, treat on the ground. Let's get all the exciting stuff. Yes, I'm so happy about the guest who's right here, but let's get the good stuff happening low. We really underestimate the power of food during exciting moments. It can be very calming. Sniffing is very good for dogs. It gives them something else to focus on, puts their energy towards somewhere. So I would pair the leash with treats on the ground. Somebody said, our 2-year-old cattle dog loves to jump all the way up to new people's faces to greet them. And I'm trying to figure out a safe way for her to greet guests. For my greetings, random treats dispersion works excellent. So yeah, again, dogs who jump vertically. Another thing that can be really helpful if you do use a gate is have the guests greet through the gate, but greet low. So again, the dog wants to go where you are. And so if you have your guests kneel down and greet through the gate, then that dog's practicing a whole bunch of saying hi to people with low to the ground, 4 on the floor, versus if you have people reaching over the gate, that's just going to encourage the jumping. So kneel down and say hi through the grate. What is the best way to train multiple dogs when they're feeding off of each other or one tries to correct the other? I cannot give advice on that here, unfortunately. Definitely consider working with a trainer. All right, I'm just scrolling through a lot of questions about getting dogs to calm down at the doorbell. Definitely, there are probably some safe. So in general, unfortunately, YouTube and the internet is really a gamble in terms of humane and accurate training advice. But I think if you search desensitizing doorbell, you might get some good tips. So, you can do doorbell paired with food, do the doorbell at a lower level, like record the doorbell and play it when your dog is chewing a bully stick or doing something else. There's are a lot of good options. I just get a little nervous about the advice of like, go forth and search the internet, because that can be really dangerous. Okay. Eileen had a great question. If going the management route, so having your dog out of the equation, is the room we choose meant to be quiet the whole time? For example, we could use our closet / the bathroom, but during that time guests are over, we would be in and out. This is a really important thing to consider, because there are a lot of dogs who, if you go in and out of the room that they're in, that can cause them to feel frantic. But on the other hand, it comes down to what works best for you. I have clients who have their dogs stay in crates in a specific room, and their dogs are okay if they have to duck in and out of the room to get stuff. But it really comes down to your specific dog. The goal is definitely for your dog to be settled and calm the whole time. So if you feel like being in and out would cause agitation, might not be the best option, unfortunately. So Laura, thanks again for asking about go say hi. What's the actual behavior you ask for or teach for the greeter, the person greeting the dog for go say hi? Hand touch, sniffing the person, question mark. I think I typically, we had tried the hand touch with that dog that you saw, the brown dog with the pink harness that we saw. And it was hard. It's hard to instruct the guest, like the greeter, of how to do the hand touch, because then they're like talking to the dog and they're moving their hand. And so maybe I like a little bit more just like being near the person and maybe for 3 seconds, or sniffing, we would say, or I don't know. I'd have to think more about that. And I think that's where I kind of bring in the specific dog, the specific context into what works best for that dog. But that's a great question. So Denise says, with COVID and no house visitors for the past 2 years, our dogs are reactive to deliveries, which they see and hear first. Any suggestions for desensitizing? So there's a huge benefit to sometimes putting up window film or closing the curtains. Usually I like window film because it is permanent. Well, it's semi-permanent, but it's up all the time. And it is can really prevent some of those huge explosions because it takes the visual piece out of it. Obviously, each home is different, but window film could be a really good option for preventing reactions to deliveries. And then also, like, some people, it's best to, if you have like a Ring doorbell, you can take the ring out of it and just have it notify your phone. So your dogs can't hear the doorbell, but you can. So, Patty, you had that same question about there's a comment that head petting, so petting the dog on the head, is very common by seniors. So just like we do with our dogs, making sure we give a lot of information about what we do want. Oh, you can pet anywhere behind Fluffy's collar. You can pet anywhere from Fluffy's collar to their tail. You have to sometimes give people just a little bit of guidance. And I always phrase things what I do want people to do, because I can tell you right now, if you say don't pet on the head, all people will do is pet on the head. So I always phrase it in, you can pet anywhere from the collar to the tail. Okay. What about if you live in a condo or apartment and lots of people pop up unexpectedly who your dog wants to jump on? That's a really good question. So I envision like you're walking down the street or you're walking on your sidewalk and like somebody pops out and your dog's like, hey. So remember, what do you want instead? Your dog to stick with you. How do you get that really quickly? Saying their name, asking for eye contact, showing them a treat. There's a few different ways to do that, but I would immediately intervene and try to get their attention back to me as quickly as possible. If it was a real big startle, I would probably show them a treat and try to pull their nose back in my direction with the food as using what's called a treat lure and just putting that right on their nose like a magnet. Hey, stick with me. And then I might consider training around people a little bit more, like default attention. I think I have I'm trying to think of what other webinars I have. Maybe just go check out my Instagram where I have more attention games to keep the dog's focus back on me. Okay, Laura asks, would you consider intentionally training some of these alternative greeting behaviors like leaning, shoulder, hip, and targeting, or do you primarily capture and reinforce whatever the dog does naturally? This is an excellent question. The question was, if you had, if you're looking for alternative behaviors during greetings, do you teach new behaviors? So like a good example would be like, do you teach a dog to get a toy if they don't naturally get toys? You certainly can teach new behaviors, or like you teach leaning in and they don't normally do that. I just find that the greeting sequence is so heightened and excited that you're going to have so much more luck with kind of tapping into a behavior that the dog does naturally. Even if they might not do it naturally in those settings, having it be in their natural repertoire or a behavior they like to do or a behavior they offer a lot, I would think that you would get a lot more success doing that than trying to teach like a retrieve in the context of a greeting. Much, much harder, in my opinion. How to get a dog to not greet instead of going up to strangers who might not welcome it. So that's exactly what I just talked about. That's where basically it's kind of like teaching default attention, meaning teaching your dog to look up at you and walk with you and stay with you, even around distractions. Everything, as Ken Ramirez said, advanced training is just the basics done really well. So if you ever learn attention games or like automatic check-in games, you literally just do that and recreate it in all sorts of different scenarios that get harder and harder, and even people passing by. So another question, Marilyn, you said that your dog bounces 3 to 4 feet into the air when excited. We're training for therapy work and she can't go into the visit without boinging all the way in. She's good about not jumping on people, but still leaps in the air. That's adorable. I'm like so tempted to say, well, if she's not jumping on people, like, what's the problem? But I understand. I get it. Again, how can you encourage nose to the ground, 4 on the floor, get closer to the behavior you want, which is walking instead of boinging. And I would do like a lot of just food on the floor and encouraging sniffing and head down. Sounds very cute. Okay. I will plug, Deborah said that your dog's friend needs reviews on great nonprofits. If you enjoyed this webinar, please consider giving us a review. Deborah puts on a ton of amazing webinars, Your Dog's Friend, with a lot of amazing professionals. Karen says, our dog gets crazy when he sees us in the morning. He launches himself at me. He herds our daughter and bites at her sweaters. Ideas for a new morning routine. So if you have a herding breed, giving a different outlet, maybe through a toy, but again, how can you prevent going after the sweaters? What can you implement as soon as you see your dog in the morning that helps him make better choices? Especially too, like if you have a dog who it's coming from a place of like, I just recharged for 8 hours, I'm so ready to go. Like, if they are inclined to like toys, like, can you toss a toy for them to go get and then bring to you? Like, yay, put all your energy into that. Like dropping treats would be fine in that context. But again, for these like exuberant dogs, I always look for like, where can I put your movement in a safe way, a more productive way that works for everybody? Tough to say without knowing more, but really think about where can you put that energy in a productive way. How to teach my dog to greet younger kids and toddlers a little more friendly. So my first question there would be, what would be your definition of friendly? What behaviors are you looking for? What do you want the greeting to look like? Because anytime we use a label, friendly, politely, calmly, what does that look like? You have to define it. A lot of times, these are simply human constructs that we've made up, and we have to really get down to the nitty gritty about what we actually mean. And that can really give us some clarity about what behaviors we want to see more of. Tamara asking about your two dogs. I do think so. If you do have multiple dogs, I do think it can be beneficial to train the skills independently. So they both know the skills independently, but then knowing real life is going to be the both of them together. It could be beneficial to absolutely train two dogs together. But again, if you're dealing with any type of redirection, that can get a little dangerous, and you want to be careful about introducing those triggering scenarios without a professional. Okay, if your dog is scared around younger kids, then that would be, you'd want to address that fear, and that would definitely be something you'd want to work with a trainer. So I think I got to most everybody's questions. I did see okay, I'm going to go ahead and sign off now. It has been an hour and 53 minutes. You all are amazing. Thank you so much for your excellent questions. Deborah, I will let you jump in if you have anything else to add. But thank you all for being here and for always joining us for this. Really appreciate it.
And thank you, Juliana. This was great as usual. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us.